One particularly memorable one was my mum taking me and my brother and I think a couple of mates as well to the Ford factory in Dagenham that you used to be able to go and look round, you know. And the guys that took you round were ex-employees of the factory that were on the production line or whatever. And post-retirement they could get this part-time work as guides around the factory, which was really good because they had, you know, anecdotes from 50 years on the production line or whatever. And yeah, totally fascinating stuff for me. And I think I would always liked making stuff. I'd always been interested in how things worked in that sort of boyish kind of way. And sort of spent a lot of my time as a kid in the shed making things or fixing things or whatever. Suddenly seeing like these, you know, huge presses stamping out car bonnets or different body panels, and just absolutely vast, these things, you know, like as high as a building, and the whole sort of structure of the assembly line and the kind of efficiency of that was just fantastic. And it's still, I think it's still the thing that for lots of designers actually, the kind of one of the real thrills of it is that thing of walking around a factory and seeing stuff. Probably it would be good if every school child went to see a Ford factory and other things like that and had more understanding of the way things come into the world, how they're built and how you can take them apart again if that's an issue, or how they eventually get to go back into the world of material supply or a landfill, whatever it is. And it's sort of misunderstood at the moment. And I think you know, all that stuff again about the way Castiglione makes a light out of a headlight and all that stuff, and it ends up with a language of forms that are sort of timeless. Maybe people then get to appreciate the ordinary things in life as opposed to the extraordinary, and that too much of the design world is about selling people the extraordinary, as in you could live like this and this fantastic big new curvy purple sofa, it will change your life and you'll be living in the future, as opposed to understanding the beautiful things and everyday things, not just objects, but you know, as if life itself is beautiful and fantastic. And it's the same with ecology as well. I think, you know, it's more about that, having that sort of understanding that there's ways of living that work and then have the same sort of logic as production methods or material use. But also, I think also it's about people. People understand that gesture, and it seems more kind of it seems more lasting and more humble, because it's less about drawing a shape that's defined by your ego and sense of stylishness, whereas if something's put together with that sort of everyday human ingenuity, you end up with an object that's closer to something that might have evolved out of use, like a tool or something. I used to teach with Jasper Morrison, and it turned out we both had a love of Jacques Tati films, and then he did an exhibition once in Japan where I think it was Playtime he had running. We were talking about that and we chatted about our enthusiasm for him, and then I've since found out that lots of other designers like him, and I think it is partly the Mononcle is the obvious kind of entry point that as a designer that's where you recognise that there's a similar interest in objects, and I think that is what's interesting about them, and it's about his films, is that he uses objects a bit like their characters in a different way to designers, but with that same obsessiveness perhaps, and same interest in what are the characteristics of these objects, and the fact that a spare tyre on a car is a bit like a wreath and therefore they can sort of swap roles in the film, or that kind of thing. But there's just a kind of charm to them, the fact that they are, I think you could watch a Tati film almost on loop over and over, and because it's got that rhythmic grace to it, it wouldn't get irritating in the way that a lot of films would. There's too much fashion in bicycles. Yeah.
And what's right with the world?
Bicycles. steel framed, solid, beautiful bicycles.